If you could only see how awesome I've gotten at picking up my iPhone with my foot and transferring it to my hand, you'll know that I'm a master at getting things done without having to move much. So today we're talking about how to play basically every chord in any key that you will come across without having to change the position that your hand sits. Alright? So we are going to start off in the key of 2021, the key of B flat, and then we're going to talk about moving it elsewhere once we get there. Okay? Now there are 7 main chords in a key, and the daunting thing about starting out is like there's so many different ways to play different chords. How do you relate them to each other? I think it's most important to learn chords in relation to each other in context because that's how songs are played, right? So again, when I say the key of B flat, we're just using all of these notes, right? We can play the major scale starting on the 6th fret of the low E string. Play those 7 notes. Each of those becomes a chord, all right? So the one chord in any key is major. So in the key of B flat, we start with B flat major, all right? Now, a lot of times I've actually made other videos about playing chord scales where you move all over the place. Like here's the 1 chord and the 2 chord and the 3 chord and the 4 chord and the 5 chord and the 6 chord and the 7 chord back to 1. But again, you're moving all throughout the neck. A lot of times, if you're playing something quick or you just want to kind of relax and not have to worry about looking at your hand as much where you're going, we can play the 1 chord, the 2 chord, the 3 chord, the 4 chord, the 5 chord, the 6 chord, the 7 chord, and back to 1. All right, so let's talk about this in better detail. You might already know this one. This is just a basic traditional major chord triad. Again, it could be like a bar chord, but we're actually going to start just by playing the D, G, and B strings. Okay, so here's your B flat, the 8th fret on the D string, and then you just staircase it up. You can get the high E string too if you want. So I've got 8, 7, 6, D, G, B. Optionally, you can grab that 6th fret on the high E string if you want another B flat, but that fulfills what you need to have to play a B flat, all right? Now, the 2 chord is gonna be minor, okay? So this right here is gonna be the minor chord in it. Now this is gonna be a C minor chord. I almost always prefer the sound of minor 11 chords. If you don't have minor 11 chords in your repertoire, this is something you want to check out because it's so easy to get there from the 1 chord to the 2 chord like this, right? From the 1 chord to the 2 chord like this. Okay? So, what we have here, all we have to do is take your middle finger, flip it to the C, the 8th fret on the low E string, and then take your pinky and replace the G string note right there. So it's in line, okay? Now again, you can just get the low E string, D string, and G string, 8th fret, and that counts as like a C minor 7, which can also be just a replacement for a 2 chord. I like to kind of post up right here with my pointer finger because I think it sounds good, 1, and also it's very easy to get to the 3 chord in the key, okay? Which is gonna be a minor chord right here, D minor, all right? You can see this is part of a bigger D minor shape right here, like that. But we're just gonna use it D, G, and B string, okay? And when we do it like that, we have the 1 chord to the 2 chord to the 3 chord. And it's very easy and very efficient. The next thing we're gonna do is gonna go to the 4 chord, okay? We can just take this A minor looking shape right here and make it just a half step up and then make it major, right? So this is like an A major shape, okay? And there's the full bar chord, the 4 chord in the key of B flat, all right? Play it however you want. There's a bunch of different ways to play it, but like I said, this is what we're gonna focus on. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? Now, we have to get to the 5 chord, okay? The voicing that we're gonna use is gonna look like this, okay? This is actually gonna be an extended chord, like a 9 chord or something like that, but this is always a replacement for the 5 chord, okay? So the 5 chord in any key is gonna be major. You can make it into a dominant 7 chord or a dominant 9 chord. I really like this one right here, and because we're gonna come back to it because it kind of pulls double duty in this chord scale, where my middle finger is now in the 8th fret of the A string. I'm grabbing the major 3rd, being the 7th fret on the D string, and then I'm going straight down G, B, and E to grab the rest of the 8th fret, okay? So, there's our 5 chord, all right? Now, again, when I say that it pulls double duty, we can actually just take maybe the bottom 3 strings. And again, there's our C minor chord again. But because that bass note is so important when we're making guitar chords, there's our 5 chord. So let's add that to the mix. 1. Ha, I played major 7. I jumped out of myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chord. It's going to be minor. Guess what? We're already right here. Okay? D minor chord's shape, but my ring finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the B string. So I have 7G, 8B, 6 on the high E string. Okay? So there's our 6 chord. Again, there are different ways to play this. We're going to talk about that in a second. But after this, I'm going to stay in the same position and hit that same kind of voicing up we had for that 9 chord, for the 5 that we had before, right? But without the root note, that makes this our bass note, which is more like the 7th chord in a key of minor 7, flat 5 chord. So I just have the 7th fret on the D string and then 8, 8, 8 all the way down. So you kind of see by using a mix of extended chords and maybe traditional triads, right? All these chords share all the same notes, right? There's only 7 notes in a key, so eventually there's going to be voicings that are up for interpretation. And that's why on a guitar, whatever the lowest note is has a lot of importance in what you would name that. I think this example right here, where we have the 5 chord, again, what note is the 8th fret on the A string? I'll give you a second. That's an F. But the difference between like an F9 chord or an A minor 7 flat 5 chord is really just kind of coming down to that bass note, okay? But as far as in the context of you play it, maybe playing a song or a progression, you can really kind of change them out. And again, it's open for interpretation, and they all have their own kind of spot in a chord scale, okay? So let's go over it one more time. We've got the 1 chord. The 2 chord is minor 11 in this case. The 3 chord is also minor. The 4 chord is major. The 5 chord is major. The 6 chord is minor. The 7 chord is half diminished, then back to 1. So that's a very efficient way to understand how these chords all get together. Now there's a million different things we can do with this. In fact, you may want to be able to practice this in different keys. We could go to the people's key, the key of G, and do the same thing here, right? So here's that same shape, but now we're on a G, right? So the 5th fret of the D string is a G, and then the 4th fret of the G string, and the 3rd fret of the B string. So there's our 1 chord. Whatever, we might not even be able to name the notes in the key. Again, it's super helpful if you can. But the 2 chord is going to be A. How do we play A minor? Well, you know, you can go from here to a traditional A minor. That has its own sound, which maybe that's what you're looking for. Maybe that's not. You want something different. Change that with an A minor 11. Okay? Now we can get to the 3 chord in that key, G, A, B. We can go to B minor. Keep your pointer finger right there. Again, remember, 1, 2, 3. Those are almost half the chords in the key. Basically exactly half of the ones that you'll probably end up using anyways. 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord is B minor, 4 chord is C, the 5 chord, D9, the 6 chord, you probably already know that, just another E minor, D minor, just 2 frets higher, and then we have the F sharp, minor 7 flat 5, there's our F sharp, the 4th fret on the D string, and then back home, okay? So, again, I think efficiency is just really important when you're thinking about things, because if you're learning a new song, especially if you're just trying to learn something quickly, you can kind of just look at a chord chart, try to diagnose which key it's in, turn those chords into numbers, and then you just get in a position that you're very comfortable with, and then start moving around, right? This is just pure muscle memory at this point where you can kind of go through that chord scale. Another thing that this does is it opens up potential new possibilities for traditional chords you already know how to play, but to play in a different manner, okay? One thing that I do in a lot of my own playing is I'll go from the 1 chord as a major 7, so now we're back in B flat, right? Where I have my pointer finger on the 6th fret, the B flat, right there, on the low E string. And then my ring finger and pinky are chilling right here on the D and the G string, 7th fret, and my middle finger is on the 6th fret of the B string, okay? So, there's my 1 chord. If I take the root away, what do we have here? Oh, that's the 3 chord that we talked about in that sequence. So, I can actually just pick a piece of that 3 chord, or I can move my bass note to a D, and I go from the 1 chord to the 3 chord, just like that, right? 1 major 7 chord to a 3 triad, 3 minor, right, is how we would talk about that. But once you kind of start doing these, you really find a lot of just different combinations that maybe work for you in ways that you haven't noticed before, all right? So I think it's just kind of like something that every guitar player should be able to do. If you like more lessons like this, definitely consider joining my Patreon, where I just go through everything. If any of this is over your head, I go through absolutely everything music theory-wise, technique-wise on my Patreon. It's only $12 a month, and there's like 100 lessons, and they're all ordered too. So you can kind of jump in wherever you feel like you are. So definitely, thanks for checking it out. Rocking the Taylor 614, by the way. And if you have any questions or comments, hit me up in the comment section, Instagram, Twitter, or the website, and check out the new album that I just released with my band, the Emeryld Ryders. I'll link that too. And like I said, I'm always looking for your feedback. Thanks a lot.